Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. This is a novel that follows one young man's journey to confront the shadowy cult of his past. The name of the novel is The Way of the Clan. It's written by Kathy Davidson, and we'll be talking all about it. Kathy is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Kathy, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be a part of your show today.
I'm glad to have you, Kathy, and I'm curious about The Way of the Clan. So can you tell me all about this book?
Well, this book was actually a dream that the good Lord gave me about 3 years ago. Woke me up at 3 a.m. in the morning. I sat down and outlined the entire novel that morning. But because I was working as a high school teacher, it took me about 2 years to complete the novel. And the story is basically a story of love, forgiveness, and redemption and salvation. And it's all from the viewpoint of a young man named Gus, who is born into a part of a clan. Because he has a strawberry birthmark on his face, he is classified as a marked child and therefore must be drowned by his father, who belongs to this cult. His father can't do it, and so he takes Gus away as an infant and leaves him on the doorstep of a pastor. The rest of the story is Gus's journey to try to find out about the clan, including a young girl that he meets in the forest that he finds out is his real blood sister. Basically, my whole goal to write this book was to give some novels to young people. I taught 10th grade for the last 13 years of my experience as a high school teacher, and I wanted to kind of get some novels out there that young people could read that have Christian morals and values in them. So that was my purpose behind writing what the Lord told me to write in this book called The Way of the Clan.
So what does your writing background look like, Kathy? Are you experienced in this, or is this all kind of new ground for you?
Well, I've been writing all my life because I'm a teacher, and teachers write. But I had written a book earlier during COVID called When She Dreams, which is not a part of Covenant Books. But I did write. I've written one other novel since then, and I'm working on a third novel. But my mom was a writer. My mother was a person who loved to write letters, so I get that talent from my mom.
So once you handed that manuscript off to your publisher, Covenant Books, and you started that, and Kathy, what did you find the most challenging part of that publishing process?
Well, I guess every writer, when they write, they want it to be, that's it, I'm done, and having to revise and having to revisit some stuff, which in the novel, things that didn't quite sync up because I'm not real good with dates and times. And it wasn't a frustrating experience. It was a very good learning experience, and one that I could definitely share with my students at the time I was teaching, that when you write something, the first time you put it on paper may not be the last time you put it on paper.
And there's nothing like getting the real thing, the finished product, holding it in your hands, that first copy. When you got that, Kathy, what was that moment like for you?
Very exciting, very exciting. I called all my friends. I'm retired now. But I called all my school friends, and I've sent them messages and sent them pictures. And I got some copies, already bought some copies and have handed them out to my closest friends, especially the ones who were my support in addition to my family. There's nothing like holding a book in your hand and looking at it and saying, Lord and I have done this together. And I'm just so proud of the fact that he gave me this story, and I'm hoping that it reaches young people and older people as well.
So now you're officially a published author, your work's out there for the world. So when you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I think the most rewarding thing about this book is this is like an offshoot or a ministry. I'm also a children's pastor at my local church. But this is like an offshoot of the ministry that Jesus originally had for me. Even though I love teaching and I taught 40 years, writing is really a talent that I know comes directly from him.
Again, the book is titled The Way of the Clan. This is written by Kathy Davidson and published by Covenant Books, so find it really everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Now, Kathy, it's been wonderful talking with you tonight and learning all about The Way of the Clan. Thanks again for being here.
Oh, I've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
The new book that just came out, written by Patricia Cavanaugh-Headden, it's titled But God, and it's an exploration of faith, forgiveness, and the transformative power of God's love. Patricia's joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about it. Patricia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, how are you guys?
Oh, doing great. Now that I'm talking with you and finding out all about your book, But God, doing really good, Patricia. So can you tell me all about it?
It's a book about faith and forgiveness, believing that everything that God said, that Jesus said is true, that everything that we are to him is better and greater than we could simply imagine. Our minds cannot even fathom how much he truly loves us and how he just wants to have a relationship with us.
Patricia, what sorts of readers did you have in mind when you were writing this?
I didn't really have any particular group of readers. Anyone who wanted to read and go deeper into a relationship with God, the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. And as he says, he who has ears, let him hear, and eyes to see.
What was the spark, Patricia? How did the idea for this come about?
Well, that would all be God, because I was never a writer before, and I did not have an idea that this was what was his intention when he started me writing about 3 years ago, and just taking notes and documenting what he was telling me through the reading of his word and being ever present with him and just getting in my closet with him and just being one-on-one. And the things that he would reveal to me in reading and in prayer, he just opened my eyes up, and I just began to write, and it just began to pour out. And about a year ago, I had some friends, 3 people, make mention, when's the book coming out? Because they knew I was writing. And I said, I don't know. It was never an idea of mine. And one day I prayed about it, and I said, God, if this is really what you want me to do, then show me. And I wanted a publisher, and if I was going to do it, it was going to have to be through a Christian publisher. And he gave me access to Christian Faith Publishing, and it just went from there. And every step of the way has been his guidance and him leading my hands, and it's just been beautiful.
So once you had your manuscript all together and you started working with the publisher, Christian Faith, what did you find the most challenging part about that whole publishing process?
I believe the most challenging part of the whole publishing process was waiting. And being prepared to go to the next step and hoping that it would be in a timely fashion and I would get confirmations by a certain time, and it would far exceed that. So for me, it was just a waiting, just anxious because I wanted to see the finished product because this was his doing, and that really was my biggest obstacle, was just waiting.
And when that day finally came for you, Patricia, the finished product was there, you're holding the first copy of But God, what was that moment like for you?
Unbelievable. I could barely believe what I had in front of me was actual physical rendition of the words that he had given me in a book form, to be able for somebody else to read, for it to be able to be in somebody else's hands. The night that I got it, actually, I had been thinking about it earlier in the day. It's like, well, Lord, you told me that it would be here before Christmas. I would have a physical copy in my hand before Christmas. And it was getting pretty close to the time. And I just said, that's okay. It'll be here when it'll be here because, I trust your timing and your timing is perfect. And my husband, he works second shift where he works. And he came in about 11:30 that night, and I had already, done my evening and was ready to finish up and go to bed. And he came in and he said, "You have a package." And I said, "I have a package?" And so I said, "Bring it here." And I ripped open the box, and there was the paperback version of the book. And I just cried. I just cried my eyes out because he is so faithful. If he tells you something, you can trust those words. You can trust his promises.
Well, again, this book is titled But God. It's written by Patricia Cavanaugh-Headden and published by Christian Faith Publishing and available places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Patricia, thanks again for talking with me here tonight and telling me all about your book. It was really nice having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
The book that just came out, written by Barry McKinley. It's a gripping, faith-based novel. It's titled Stuck, Between the Badge and a Hard Place. And Barry is sitting here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about it. Barry, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be talking with you and happy to be learning all about Stuck. Barry, can you tell me about what you've written here?
It's kind of a play on words, honestly, Corey. So Jimmy Mack, he's a police officer. And at one time, he was a really strong Christian man, full of faith and always tried to do the right thing. But a late night incident kind of leaves him with a debilitating injury and unable to speak for a while, which is sometimes what we all need, right? And that gives him just enough time to be quiet and realize that life has a whole lot of moving parts and that our decisions are just that. They're our decisions, not those of a God that's bent on, teaching us some lesson or, like pulling wings off of flies or anything like that. But while he's in his silence, he's able to come to terms with the decision that cost him dearly years earlier. And that silence was just what he needed to realize that God didn't make the decision for him, but God's there to lead him out of the darkness that it caused.
Well, Barry, what kind of a reading audience do you think would be really into this?
Well, I hope everybody. It's not just people that like thrillers or mysteries or inspiration. It's kind of a thinking process. So anybody that likes to think a little bit and look at something from a big picture rather than a myopic standpoint. So if you like to think a little bit and you like to use your brain cells, and those are the people that I think are going to benefit the most out of the book. People that are open to think that maybe there's a little bit more.
So I'm curious how this all came about, Barry. How did the idea come to you for this?
That's a really great question. It actually just happened. I just sat down one day and it just kind of fell out of my fingers onto the keyboard. It took me about 3 weeks to write the book, 3 or 4 weeks to write the book. And these are just things. These things happened over a lifetime, right? These different God-inspired things, they happen over your lifetime, and I was able to get a way to kind of put it all together, and hopefully people will find that, hey, this is a pretty good little book.
So is this all new ground for you, Barry, or are you experienced in it?
Well, I've actually written about a dozen books, but this is the only one that I've published. I've never finished those 12. They were always kind of left in limbo. How do I finish this one up? I mean, I could never do it. But this one, it stuck with me. Pardon the pun.
So once you had your manuscript ready and you hand it off to your publisher, Christian Faith, that whole publishing process starts. Barry, what did you find the most challenging part about that end of things?
The editing process. It's challenging because I started with something, and of course, I may not know the correct lingo that professional writers do, people that go to journalism classes or English classes. And so working with the editors and, hey, maybe we shouldn't say it this way, or maybe that's the wrong context. So that was the most challenging part, I think.
I could only imagine what was going through your head whenever that first copy came in and you were holding it in your hands for that first time. It was a real thing, finally. Barry, what was that moment like?
Well, surreal. I'll honestly say it was really surreal because you've got the disbelief and then even a little touch of humility because it's surreal because it's incredible. Hey, I did this. I actually made it happen. Disbelief because it's hard to think of, hey, I'm a published author now. And then you've got the humility part because I was able to do this while realizing that I'm only a vessel. And that's what I look at myself as at this point, because I couldn't have wrote this without some sort of inspiration.
Looking down the road, with this, I feel maybe you've kind of broken the ice, and now it's time for maybe more to get out there. Do you see yourself publishing more, do you think?
Actually, yes, I do. This will actually be a trilogy, right? So the second one is almost complete, and then the third one's going to be coming out, or at least in the writing phase.
Well, if you're looking for a book that might challenge your thinking and might challenge your perspective, then this is the book for you. Again, it's titled Stuck, Between the Badge and a Hard Place. This is written by Barry McKinley, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available everywhere, really. Places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Barry, it's been great talking with you tonight and learning all about Stuck and the process. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much, Corey. I appreciate it.
This is a testimony of faith and healing. It's the new book by Cheryl Lynn, titled Washing the Inside of the Cup, My Journey of Walking in the Spirit. And we're going to be talking all about this book. Cheryl is joining me right now. Cheryl, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Cheryl. I'm interested to learn all about washing the inside of the cup. So can you tell me what readers are going to be getting into here?
They'll find when somebody gives their whole heart to the Lord, they go on an amazing journey with God. He shows up in a big way and helps us through everything we need help with.
And what sorts of readers were you thinking about when you were working on it?
Everybody and anyone. God has offered his son free salvation for anybody that will accept it. And when we decide to give him our whole heart, he's available and he's right there waiting for us. He's faithful to his word.
So how did this come about, Cheryl? What gave you the idea to get started on it?
Well, I was married for 20 years to a real abusive man, and I had 7 children with this man. I stayed in the marriage because I was raised that, God doesn't like divorce and that divorce is wrong. But I knew I couldn't do it on my own. That's why I sought the Lord with my whole heart. But I had younger children and like teenagers and then like a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, 7, 10, 13, 15, and 17 when I filed for divorce. And the youngest one, who was 2, didn't live through as much as all the rest of us did. So over the years, we would talk about some of the things that happened during that marriage. And my youngest one, we were all going on vacation one year, and he said, "Mom, some of those stories you've talked about?" He said, "Can you write them all down and bring us all a copy on our vacation?" And I was like, "Sure." So I wrote it all up and took it, and everybody was reading it. And my youngest son, who was like early 20s by that time, he was like, "Mom, you've got to turn this into a book. This could help so many people."
So have you ever done anything like this before, or is this all new ground for you?
It was all new ground.
So was this a long process once you got started on it, clear up through the publishing and everything?
The writing, it was only 3 weeks because I only had 3 weeks before our vacation where we all met. I found a publisher, and they accepted it right away. Anyway, it took about 1.5 years for it all to go through the whole publishing process.
Yeah, there's a lot involved in that end of things. What did you find the most challenging part about the publishing process?
How long it took. I didn't realize it would take so long, but I guess putting a book together takes longer than you realize.
And there's nothing like getting that finished product. And when that day came and you're holding the first copy of this, what was that like?
It was amazing. I actually took the first copy to my pastor. I wanted, his blessing on it, and he told me he could sense God's anointing on it. And he read it, and a week or 2 later, he found me at church, and he said, "Donna, there's some really good stuff in here." And I was like, when the Lord's involved, it's always going to be good.
Now you're officially a published author, Cheryl. So when you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Helping other people. If one person gets closer to the Lord through my book, it'll have been worth it all. But I do believe the Lord's going to use it to draw many people closer to him.
So looking down the road, do you think you would do something like this again? Do you think you got maybe another book or 2 in you?
Well, I might. The Lord continues to show me things and give me insight, and maybe down the road I might do another book. Washing the inside of the cup is something that once we accept Jesus as our Savior, we all need to cleanse our mind, our will, our emotions. We need to renew our mind. And that's an ongoing thing. We never stop doing that.
So we have a lot of listeners right now who are authors just starting out. So Is there maybe anything you picked up along the way of doing this that you could toss out there as some advice for them?
Write from your heart. Mine happened to be, things that the Lord showed me, an insight he gave me, and just be honest and write what the Lord shows you to write.
Again, this is titled Washing the Inside of the Cup, My Journey of Walking in the Spirit. It's written by Cheryl Lynn and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Now, Cheryl, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Sitting down with me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, author L.J. Alexander. Lori, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Corey, thank you for all that you do for all of us bookworms out there.
The pleasure's mine. I love talking with authors like you and learning all about their books. You got a new one out. It's titled 7 Laws of Living for Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. Lori, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
Well, there's 600 pages, but I'll try to get this down to a few sentences for us, Corey. The 7 Laws of Living for Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity was a personal quest for me after hitting the misery index of life, which I think most people do. But I met a man so profound on my journey, which Jesus to many, he changed my life. And these 7 laws of living are really a fixed application, according to him, in the universe. And once we apply these and embrace them in our life, there's really no limits. But you must live from a soul center. Most of our fall, is what people want to call it, is living from a mind-centered life. So these laws are so simple, people really dismiss them as such. And this turned my life around. So I believe Jesus is preparing us for this next level of ascension, as people want to call it. I know no one talks this way anymore, but I personally believe this is a very direct reach for him to us with words from source. And he's not really done this on this kind of path in 2,000 years. People have a chance to come and meet him through these words. They're just such poetic wisdom. And I don't hold authorship to him. I really just was a good listener and wrote it all down and managed to get it through Christian Faith Publishing. And I hope we've captured your audience a little bit, because there's wow in these words, and this book will change people's lives. And that excites me, because I just wanted to help people. I just had a simple plan, because at the time, Corey, I needed some help and I had questions, and I'm pretty sure I was most of the suggestion box in God's little world up there, or big world.
Yeah, this is exciting, Lori. So what kinds of readers did you have in mind? Was this primarily for a believing audience, would you say?
Actually, I think it's for the seekers. I believe religion is kind of structured God up so much that it's rather disappointed people. So the title is practical and powerful. I hope the laws lend empowerment of source, not punishment as we think of laws. But even God has, fixed laws in the universe, and these happen to be unity, life, love, justice, respect, honesty, and kindness. And you would think that would be obvious to all of us. They're originally embedded in the 10 Commandments, as people like to think, but this is a real new version and expanded version of what we think of all of his examples in the Bible. And he really goes over some really personal events in the Bible, from the 2 thieves to the woman at the well, but so many other in our time, in our language now. And that just tells me a lot, because I'll probably be talking to you again, Corey. I have a second book I published simultaneous with this one, was a piece on Revelation, was also scribed from him. So there's really a nice wave coming of God being really interested in what's going on here.
I'm curious what that spark was. What made you decide, hey, I'm going to sit down and get started on this book?
Really, actually, he instructed me to get some notebooks and just start asking questions and listen to what he had the answers to. But obviously, he had a full direction in it, because there's such unity in all these words and it took me years to do this by hand, and then subsequently type them, and then clean them up through, quote, editors. We didn't edit any of the language, but we had to edit a lot of my, forgotten English.
So was this a long journey for you overall, the writing, publishing process, everything like that?
It was, because I did 2 books simultaneously with CFP, and they both published at the same time. We thought we were going to stretch them out 6 months, and they published the same week, and that was rather a miracle by itself. But that was pretty interesting. Yes, it's been an interesting journey. It's taken me about 10 years to get all this done, but it was 2.5 years in publishing. I think we about wore out a couple of their employees there, just trying to go back and forth and get this right. But I'm grateful for all the help I had and have on my way. I mean, I have some interesting accomplishments, but they all seem to run to a dead end. And I just kind of asked him, what do I do with my life? We're at a closed door again here. And that's how this happened.
Well, this book will definitely be a blessing for so many readers. Again, it's titled 7 Laws of Living for Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. It's written by L.J. Alexander, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Lori, it's been really fantastic talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here with me.
Hey, Corey, thanks so much, and I look forward to talking to you on that second book.
Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be talking with author Dorothy Grace. Dorothy, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here tonight.
It's lovely to be with you.
I wanted to congratulate you on having a new book out. It's titled Henry Saves His Father, a World War II story. Dorothy, can you tell me all about the book?
It's a sequel to Henry Saves Christmas. The first book, his father is in France working for the French government. Henry is back in England with his mother. In the spring of 1941, his dad stops communicating with them. And so Henry is going to try to get away from England and sneak over to France somehow to find his father.
Dorothy, what kinds of readers do you have in mind for this?
I'm saying middle school age because it is a war story.
Dorothy, how did the idea for this come about? Was there a spark that made you get started?
The spark was before my first book. I dreamt about a Santa Claus in my dream. Even though I didn't talk to him, I knew he was English. That's how that first story started. And then Henry actually became Santa Claus at the end of that book. It's a very cute story.
What does your writing background look like, Dorothy? Prior to this series, are you experienced in it?
No, I enjoyed writing for myself. Occasionally Christian articles for my church paper and things like that.
So being that you're a published author, whenever you think about that, Dorothy, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
People that write me thank you notes, and a 90-year-old lady wrote me one, and her last sentence was, "Thank you for writing that story." That's rewarding for me.
Looking down the road, are we going to see more books in this series, do you think?
You know, I have a story of Henry in college. He meets a girl and gets her pregnant, and she wants to have an abortion. So it's a very controversial subject. I've had people encourage me to write it, but I'm dragging my feet about it.
A lot of people who are listening to us right now are authors just starting out. So, Dorothy, do you have maybe something in the way of advice that you could offer them?
I guess don't give up. If you get frustrated somewhere in your story, you know, like just before the ending, you don't know how to end it, it will come to you and you will succeed.
Well, you spend a lot of time, you put a lot of work into something like this, and I could only imagine what you're thinking, what you're feeling whenever you finally get to hold the first copy, and it's a real thing. What's that like?
It's wonderful, and actually I got a hold of a revised copy of my second book the other day. My daughter, who is a PhD art historian, she edited it for me over Christmas, which was kind of fun to have her do that. And we found about 3 mistakes, and we had a new one made, a new copy made.
Well, it's hard to do this kind of thing alone, and often if you have maybe some support around you, it gets a little easier. So were there people in your life, Dorothy, that could be there to maybe motivate and keep you encouraged along the way?
Yeah, friends that liked the first one, of course, and kept asking when the second one was coming out. And now they're asking for the third, but I'm not quite there yet with that one.
I've noticed talking with a lot of authors here over the years that they tend to be big readers as well. Dorothy, would you say that you're a big reader?
It goes in spurts. You know, I'll read a couple at a time, and then it'll be months before I read something else.
So once you sit down and you get started on a book like Henry Saves His Father, clear up through the publishing process, getting it out there for everybody, is this a long span of time?
I thought it was a year from start to finish, but I will tell you that I've had authors that tell me it's taken them a lot longer than that.
I think a lot of readers are going to be into this book and this series. Again, it's titled Henry Saves His Father, a World War II story. It's written by Dorothy Grace and published by Covenant Books. And you can get it really anywhere like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Dorothy, it's been really nice talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being on the show with me.
And thank you for your call.
Unveiled, The Hidden Messages in the Parables of Jesus. That's the name of the book. It just came out, written by Festus Agbonzikilo. Festus is joining me now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about this. Festus, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Very welcome.
Festus, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
Yeah, thank you very much, Corey. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about Unveiled. Yeah, Unveiled, the hidden messages in the parables of Jesus. The name, the title of the book implies the book is about some of the parables of the Lord Jesus Christ and the underlying deeper messages that they convey. That came to me as an instruction for the Lord. Actually, that's more like the inspiration behind the writing of the book. The Lord unveiled those to me. The Bible says nobody can receive anything unless it is given to them from heaven. So it wasn't because of any special ability or skills or knowledge that I possessed that enabled me to write that. That was just the privilege of grace, and that was unveiled to me. And so I was instructed to put that as a book to also bless the body of Christ and all of mankind, because the message of the gospel is to all men, is to everyone, to all people, all over the world. So that was how the book came about. And I'm very happy to speak about it.
So do you have a writing background? Do you have experience in doing all this, or is this sort of new ground for you?
I mean, that's a very interesting question, because I have a doctorate in engineering. So I'm an engineer, a mechanical engineer. So I have a very strong background in academia or in academic research. And so I'm used to writing stuff. I have made lots of publications, but they are all in the field of engineering and technology. But it's my first more like Christian publication. In the art of writing itself, I have been doing that, but not in the area of Christian writing. So that has been mostly in the field of engineering, research, development. So I've made a number of publications, but this is the first Christian publication that I'm making of the book to be published.
So once you started writing this, clear up through the publishing process and getting out there for the world, Festus, was this a long journey overall that you were on?
Yeah, well, to an extent, I would say yes. It was relatively long. I think everything took up to about 1 year and 2 months. 1 year and 2 months, that's about 14 months to get all that together, and the book being available and released to the public globally and through Christian Faith Publishing. So that really has been a very interesting journey and very exciting to finally get the book out. So it took about 14 months to get all that done.
So once you had your manuscript ready for publishing and you started working with Christian Faith, what did you find the most challenging part about that publishing process?
Well, I think I'm here in the UK. I live here in the UK, and Christian Faith Publishing is in the US. So every time I have something to do, I more or less leave it, and I go to sleep with the hope that the following day I'm going to already get a response. So that worked really very well. I didn't have to make calls because sometimes it's already late from my end. So I just leave emails, and the following day when I found that they've replied, and so that wasn't much of a challenge. I wouldn't say there were any meaningful challenges. I mean, everything went so smoothly. A very great organization. Everything went really very well, and I was super impressed and very surprised to see how seamless everything went throughout that period of publication.
Well, what an interesting book. I think this is going to bless a lot of readers. Again, the name is Unveiled, The Hidden Messages in the Parables of Jesus. This is written by Festus Agbonzikilo and published by Christian Faith Publishing, and really it's available anywhere like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores.
Well, Festus, it's been really fantastic talking with you and learning all about Unveiled. Thank you again for being on the show with me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'm looking at a book right now. It's a children's tale of adventure and self-discovery. It's written by Savannah Lampe, and it's titled, If Penguins Could Fly. And I'm going to find out all about this book. Savannah is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Savannah, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
It's great to have you, Savannah. Could you tell me all about If Penguins Could Fly and what readers are going to find here?
Well, I was inspired to write this book. I have a 6-year-old son, and he is obsessed with penguins, so he kind of was the inspiration behind the book. We were learning about penguins one day, and it's talking about how penguins don't fly, they swim. And he looked at me and he just said, Mom, what if penguins could fly? And I said, well, what if they could? What would they do? And he started naming off just some of the funnest things that they would do. He said they could dunk a basketball and fly up and talk to God. And I just was so inspired. I took all the fun things we said and turned them into a big old rhyme. And here I am a year later with a published book.
So would you say this is a book best suited for younger children?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Probably the sweet spot's probably 4 to 8 age range.
So what does your writing background look like, Savannah? Are you experienced in all of this?
I am not. This was definitely a whole new world, and I learned so much along the way.
Was it a long process overall being your first one?
It was, yeah. It took from the start, from inspiration to having it in hand, was about 10 months.
So you had your manuscript already, started working with the publisher, Christian Faith, and get that whole publishing process started. What did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
I would definitely have to say, not being as involved. When I gave it to the publishing company, I gave it to them to take care of. And then there were some aspects that I was like, oh man, self-publishing would kind of be fun because I could have total control this way or that way. And Christian Faith did a great job with it. And I am so happy that I went with them. But yeah, it's just a big learning curve.
And then finally that day comes and you get your first copy and you're finally holding it. What kind of a moment was that like for you, Savannah?
It was kind of surreal, because I had been working on it for so long. And, my son, by that point, he was over it anyway. And so I'm trying to show him, he's like, yeah, it's our book. We've already had it. And I was like, no, this is it, But I was just I was proud of myself. And there would have been lots of time along the road that I could have quit. And I didn't. I, persevered. So it was just kind of a surreal, I did this type thing.
So now that you're officially a published author, Savannah, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I would have to say when my friends or family write me and they're like, we read your book, the kids love it, or they send me little snippets of them with it and talking about penguins, it just that will never get old to me.
Savannah, looking ahead, do you think you'll be writing and publishing more maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I am working on my next book, and that one's going to be If Penguins Had Passports. So Waddles will continue his adventures onto the rest of the world.
I'm looking at the book right now, and this is a beautiful cover. I love the artwork, Savannah. How did that all come about?
I hired a gal to do some for me, and she was great. She lived in Malaysia, and then language barrier and things kind of got the better of us and time frames. And so Christian Faith took up the rest of the illustrations, and they did such a great job. And they really everybody just brought the vision to life. That's exactly what I wanted, there in Santorini with the blue top cathedrals. It's just perfect.
So while you're writing, Savannah, is it overall a smooth thing for you, or do things like writer's block kind of get in the way sometimes?
Oh, yeah. I definitely get stuck. My godmother is just the best, and she is was instrumental to writing this book. I don't think I could have done it without her. I'm sending her these ideas, and she's helping me with rhymes, and it's a hit or miss kind of thing. So when you're feeling it, you really got to go for it.
Well, what a wonderful book. Again, it's titled If Penguins Could Fly. It's written by Savannah Lampe, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and really available everywhere. Amazon and Barnes & Noble, iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Savannah, it's been fantastic talking with you tonight and learning about If Penguins Could Fly. Thanks again for being here.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, right now, here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be talking with Dr. Samantha Slotnick. Samantha, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your being here and just wanted to say congratulations. You have a new children's book out titled, But Mommy, I Can See. So, Samantha, can you tell me all about this?
Absolutely. Well, I wrote this book as a way to help families, parents, and children, as well as communities, teachers, get a better handle on a way that children can be helped when they have vision problems that are addressed not just by addressing eyesight alone. So a lot of the time, and I'm a behavioral optometrist, so I'm writing from experience as a provider of vision care, especially for children with functional vision problems. So my practice does lean into pediatric side of things. And a lot of the children that I support, we're providing preventative care. And the glasses change their ability to be available for learning, comprehending information, keeping their place when they're reading, actually just being comfortable reading. The preventative aspects include the fact that sometimes these lenses that we provide at an earlier junction when we see signs of a problem, but we can still correct them, we provide lenses that change the relationship that the child has with reading material, makes them more comfortable, puts them at ease. But the child often needs to be part of that process. They don't understand. How come, Mommy, I can see? I can see when I take my glasses off. So this book is from the perspective of this young lady named Sylvia, who's probably around third grade, and she's on a journey learning to incorporate her use of glasses into her life and lifestyle. And all of the typical things that show up when a child first gets glasses that are reading glasses, they show up for Sylvia, including the factors of social aspects and then getting accustomed to an accessory and some of the school experiences, some of the challenges when glasses aren't brought home for homework, family situations that come up, and all of that is illustrated in this amazing pictorial read. But the main reason that I wanted to get this book out there is to use it as an educational tool that reaches children at one level, but it's also reaching the care providers at a whole other layer. So parents, teachers, and kids, they're all learning at the same time through Sylvia's eyes. What do these glasses really do? And I want to also share that when I wrote this, it was important for me to provide a perspective that really empowered the child to have a direct relationship with her providers of care. So in my office, I think one of the reasons that the children get excited to come back is that we create this direct bond. We have a relationship where a child and I are sitting and connecting with each other directly. I'm not asking questions of the parent while the child is in front of me on that first visit. I've already spoken with a parent. I've already taken information from the parent. Now my role is to help the child feel like they are understood, their concerns are understood, their issues are understood. They feel like they can talk to me directly. And some of that is education. Why do I need these glasses? Doctor, what are they doing for me? Why do I have to wear them if I can see without them? And the fact is, until I highlight some of those challenges and advantages for the patient, they may not really understand that, yes, they can read the text on the page, but the glasses are doing more than supporting eyesight. They change fluency. They help the child start feeling like it's easier to read. And I hear a change in the color and warmth in their voice as they read. I hear a change in their inflections, which means that they're processing grammar. They're seeing commas and periods and they're pausing. They start changing their phrasing so that they suggest in just how they read it that they're beginning to comprehend as they read the material.
What an important book. Again, it's titled, But Mommy, I Can See. It's written by Dr. Samantha Slotnick and published by Newman Springs Publishing, so really it's available everywhere. Check it out at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Samantha, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about this great book. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I appreciate the engaging conversation.
The audiobook edition of the new book by Melissa Page, titled Job 13, It's a personal reflection on a journey of healing and breaking the chains of addiction, and it's in stores now. And the author, Melissa, is here with me now. We're going to talk all about it. Melissa, welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Melissa, can you tell me all about Job 2013 and what readers and audiobook listeners are going to get into here?
Job was a character in the Bible who was a very rich man, and he lost everything in a really short amount of time, and God restored him back double. That was the story of Job, and that was the story of my life in 2013. I got sick and stopped getting well and lost everything and had a really good plan to end my life. And the Lord said, nope, we're not going to do that. And took me on a healing journey that I would really like to share with people who are in a broken place or a depressed place or a place of great financial loss or despair or loneliness or hopelessness. Because God's still in the healing business and I'm only alive today because He is.
Wow, that's so important, Melissa. How did this come about? What was that spark that made you say, hey, I got to write this book?
God healed my life in a miraculous way. I was basically told I'd never walk again and I would never work again, and lost my farm and all my animals and my marriage. I lost everything, and I was in a really hopeless place. And through a whole series, not just one, but a bunch of miraculous events, God restored my life and had me move to Anchorage, Alaska. And the Lord was showing me these really, really cool things. I just felt like the Holy Spirit says, oh, you need to write that down. Several years down the road, you'll remember the whole story from beginning to end. So I ended up writing down several what would become to be chapters. I never planned to write a book, but there are these beautiful things that the Lord showed me, and I felt like I needed to share. For example, I was walking to the gym one day, and I had to walk by a skating rink to get to the YMCA. And there was a man sitting there watching a girl skate, and there was the smile and the pride that came out of this man's face as he watched this girl skate. It must have been his daughter. I don't know. I'd never seen a human smile in pride over another human like that. And all of a sudden, the girl was skating, and all of a sudden, she went down and fell and went backwards, and she was right between me and him. And I saw her struggle and get back up and continue skating, and that man's smile never faltered. He never saw her fall. What he saw was her grace and her beauty and her persistence and her strength, and it overwhelmed me because I knew that's what God sees in us when we screw up. I knew I had to write that one down. And after that, it was, I need to write this one down, I need to write this one down, I need to write this one down. And soon there was about 15 of them, and I thought, well, I might as well publish it.
So you're a new author. This is your first book, right?
Yes, it's my first book, yes.
Congratulations. I can only imagine what you were thinking and feeling whenever that first copy came in and you're finally holding it in your hands, Melissa. What was that moment like for you?
Oh, that was priceless. That was priceless. If I never sell any, I have given away several to organizations that work with people and that encourage hope and that support people. But if I never sell one, that's fine. This book is something that I give to the Lord, because if it touches one person that was in the hopeless place that I was, that's what it's for. If one person reads it who is on the brink of suicide and says, if God will do it for that broken little nobody, maybe He'll do it for me too. That's the whole point. That was the whole point of everything. Because God still can, and God still will, and God still does. And I've been a Christian for, 35 years, and I didn't know that. The world is in such a hopeless place, and the devil wants to lie to you and tell you that you're better off dead, and that is such a lie. That is such a lie.
Well, what a blessing I think this is going to be to so many people. Again, the title of the book is Job 2013. It's written by Melissa Page and published by the Audiobook Network, so go to places you usually get your audiobooks and you'll be able to find it, like Audible and iTunes and Amazon. Melissa, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling me about this book and about your story. It's been really great talking with you.
I really appreciate your time.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.